You're listening to The Pump Fake. With your host, Jarrett Bailey.
Welcome into the latest edition of the Pump Fake, everybody. I am Jarrett Bailey with you, as always, and joined today, as I frequently am, by my good friend, JP Acosta from SB Nation, rocking, is that a Tiger Woods hat?
That's right.
Yeah, hell yeah. It's a good hat. Good to see you, buddy.
Good to see you, too. We were talking about earlier, we're kind of in the brain drain portion of the offseason where nothing is happening and everything is aggregated, but it's going well. It's going well.
It is, and it's that time of year where, yeah, we're just kind of relying on, Jordan Schultz said something. All right, let's talk about that for a little bit, or, debate stuff. I know you and our mutual buddy, Greg Rosenthal, have been doing a lot of stuff over at NFL Daily. That's been cool to see. By the way, I sent him a text the other day, and I was like, all right, I have a take, and we got into an argument about it. I said, and I know you're going to disagree with me on this, so I'm going to tell you it. I said that I will die on the hill that Ben Roethlisberger was better than Drew Brees, and it's a hill that...
Oh, my God. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, that was he had a similar reaction. So here we are.
All right, then. We're just gonna let that one fly at the beginning of the show. Like what?
Tell me. I'll say to you the same thing I said to him. I don't think that there's anything like that Breeze did definitively like incredibly better than Ben. He said accuracy, which is fine, but let's not pretend that Ben wasn't like, a fine passer and inaccurate or anything like that. More than Breeze.
It's not that he wasn't inaccurate. Yeah. It's just that Drew Brees is one of the most accurate quarterbacks ever.
Sure. But so like statistically speaking, so is Sam Bradford though,
But it's not okay. It's not the same thing.
I know.
Those are nowhere near the same thing. I think for what Drew Brees did at position for being an undersized quarterback and not being able to win with phenomenal athleticism or arm strength, and his game, I think his game aged a lot more gracefully than Ben Roethlisberger.
That's an interesting argument. I don't know, because like Ben put up multiple 5,000 passing yard seasons and won a couple passing titles too later in his career. So I think they both aged pretty good. After Ben post elbow injury, like the 2 seasons he had there, like obviously wasn't prime Ben anymore. But even like the last like year or two of Drew, like his shoulder the arm strength wasn't there either. So I think they both. By the way, I love Drew. I take nothing away from Drew, and I'm obviously very biased when it comes to this being a Steelers fan. So that was just something that I knew I would be alone in, and I enjoy throwing that at my friends to see what they say. So that was good. I'm glad that you reacted that way. That was exactly what I was
saying. That was like a shot of espresso in the morning. It was like, whoa, all right, man.
But my final point on this, though, is that Ben won more, never had any sort of losing season, went to more Super Bowls, won more Super Bowls, with arguably, I would say, less talent offensively, didn't have an offensive-minded head coach. So I think that there was more working for Drew in a few different ways than there was for Ben.
He also had one of the best defenses of the late 2000s, early 2010s.
This is true.
That's just, we're just not going to involve defense.
This is true. That's completely fair.
Here.
Completely fair.
I see what you're saying, and I get it. The Super Bowls, the winning, especially coming in the NFC, in the AFC North. But
yeah.
Drew Brees, just as an individual, was a much better passer to me. There's much more there in terms of accuracy. I think in terms of ball placement, Drew Brees is one of the best quarterbacks ever when it comes to ball placement. And he made up for the lack of arm strength as he aged more in his career with just being one step ahead of every single defense that he was playing against.
We'll disagree, and that's okay. That's not why we're here to do the show today. Everybody watching or listening as a podcast, watching on YouTube. NFC predictions. Last week we did AFC predictions with Matt Verderame, Sports Illustrated. Today we're going to do the NFC side of that. If you didn't watch the AFC one, yeah, go and watch that after this, or go and listen to it, however you're taking this in. Was it maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, I released my first iteration of game-by-game picks. It was the night of the schedule release, so I guess it was closer to 2 weeks ago. Go through, predict every game on the NFL schedule, and see what comes to be of it. as I do every year, do one night of the schedule release and then one right before the season starts. This is the first iteration of that. So we'll hop into it today. We'll see what JP and I agree on, what we disagree on, and go from there. So to start, we'll go with the NFC North. And I feel like I'm kind of going against the grain a little bit from a lot of people here, but I have the Green Bay Packers winning the division and being the number 1 seed in the NFC, followed by the Detroit Lions 11-6 as the top wild card spot. And then the Chicago Bears at 8-9. I seem to be on an island when it comes to Minnesota. I love Kevin O'Connell. I think he's a top 5 head coach in the NFL. JJ McCarthy still practically a rookie, though, and I wasn't super duper high on him coming into the league. And I don't think they're going to replicate that magic carpet ride of last year of winning 14 games. Won't be surprised if they win like 8-9 games, though, just because KOC is that good of a head coach. But I am very high on Green Bay, and I think Jordan Love dealt with an injury all of last season. They still won a lot of games. I think a healthy Jordan Love, Matthew Golden on offense is an added weapon, and I really like some of the things that they've done defensively. Edgerrin Cooper emerged as a really nice player for them. So I'm big on Green Bay, a little less big on Detroit than some, and I think when it comes to the consensus on Minnesota, I'm a little bit lesser there as well. So what do you say about the NFC North?
So I would actually go Lions, Packers, Vikings, Bears again.
Okay.
And the reason I had the Lions over the Packers is, like you said, I'm a big fan of Jordan Love. I'm a big fan of the Green Bay offense. I think they can be even more explosive than they were last year. But I still have a lot of questions about that defense, the sustainability of the defense. The cornerback room still a little thin, especially if Jarrett ends up being traded or just doesn't play like he did last season when he got hurt. I think Edgerrin Cooper is great. Yeah. But he still is missing another added level to his game as a true 3-down linebacker. I think he's more of a blitzer than he is a pass coverage guy, which the Packers need because they still don't have a lot of pass rush, like firepower on the edge. All of their defenders on the edge are speed to power, and none of them can win by themselves. And I think that's what you saw towards the end of the season. They couldn't win without help. And I think that's fine. You know, it's good for a defensive coordinator to design games to help your guys win, but at some point you got to be able to win with 4. You can't send, because simulated pressures only work so much. I'm actually going to be writing a story in a few weeks about simulated pressures and what it's done to the NFL and how offenses can kind of fight back against them. But I think for the Packers, I just want to see another secondary pass rusher kind of step up a little bit, which is weird because their best pass rusher is an off-ball linebacker. But I'm a big fan of what the Lions bring. I think they're going to have a lot of positive regression when it comes to injuries because they're going to get everybody back.
Yeah, this is true.
I don't think the offense is going to take as much of a step back as many other people do. I think Dan Campbell has much more of a say in that offense than people believe. And I think the defense is too talented for them to really fall. I don't think they're going to have the same level of success as last year, obviously, but I would go Lions, Packers. I'm still a fan of the Vikings. I think, again, the infrastructure around JJ McCarthy and what he did last season in the preseason, he looked like he could run that offense to a really high level. Like, before Sam Darnold was a thing, it was all assumed that when they were both healthy, JJ was going to take over that job. So right. I'm a fan of what he's going to do in that offense. And for the Bears, I think they're going to be good. I just don't know if they'll be good enough to beat them.
Yeah, and Chicago's like kind of the big wild card here because like Caleb Williams had a fine rookie season, 20 touchdowns, 6 picks in a completely dysfunctional situation. And I think inserting Ben Johnson into that will only make him better. So I think at minimum, they'll be a middle of the pack team that nobody wants to play. I don't think anybody's going to be lining up to play the Bears. They have at least one player at each level of their defense that I really like as well. So I think at minimum, they'll be a tough out. It's just, I can't quite put them at, 9-10 wins yet until like I see it on the field. We'll see what Ben Johnson looks like as a head coach. Obviously we know how good of a play designer and whatnot he is, but that they are a very big wild card to me when it comes to the rest of the division. But yeah, like I said, I think that Green Bay to me, I'm just a huge Jordan Love guy. And I think that coming off the injury, hopefully being 100%, we talk about, Kevin O'Connell being a great coach. I think Matt LaFleur is one of the more underrated head coaches in the NFL. And I really like what they could become this year. But moving on to the NFC East, let's see what what that has in store. Philadelphia will win the division again. I have them going 12-5, being the 2 seed. I think the Commanders, I forgot to put it in there, but the Commanders will be a playoff team at the 6th seed again, going 10-7. Dallas going 7-10. The Giants are a tire fire at 4-13. Let's talk about the Giants first, though. What's the over/under of weeks for you before we see Jaxson Dart as the starter?
Oh my goodness. Let me go check their schedule because I think
this is always a fun game to play.
I had it gamed out. Let's play the schedule game.
Sure.
All right. So they open the season at Washington.
I think they play Washington pretty well, but I think the Commanders win.
Then they go to Dallas. I think they lose that game.
I think they lose that game.
Then they're at home against Kansas City on Sunday Night Football. Why did we do that?
Every year, man, we do this stupid thing where we put just the entire NFC East, specifically the Giants, in like 4 or 5 standalone games, and I hate it. They'll lose, and it's going to be awful.
Then they play the Chargers at home. They also lose that game.
Yeah.
Then they play New Orleans on the road. I think
that's a toss-up.
That's a toss-up, but I think New Orleans could have the worst record in football this year.
I agree with that. Yeah, a little bit of foreshadowing for what's to come. So what are they? We're putting 1-4 right now?
You're at 1-4 right now, and then you have to go to Philly on a short week.
That's a
loss.
No,
you're at home against Philly on a short week.
It doesn't matter where the game's at. They're losing that.
On the road at Denver, I think they lose that one.
I think they lose that game.
Then they're at Philly again.
That's 1-7.
Then San Francisco at home.
1-8.
Then Chicago.
I think they would lose that game, but it wouldn't surprise me necessarily.
They're on the road.
Probably 1-9 then.
Then at home against Green Bay.
Oh, I don't think they're going to beat Green Bay.
1-10. You're at Detroit.
1-11.
Then the Patriots on the road, week 13, Monday Night Football.
I think the Patriots are going to be a playoff team. I don't think that they're winning that game.
So by their bye week in week 14, we're looking at a 1-14 record.
That's bad.
I think we see Jaxson Dart probably after the 2 Philly games.
I think if you want to put Jaxson Dart in the best possible situation to look good, if they're 0-3 going into New Orleans, why not put him in there? That's the best shot that you'll have of making him look pretty good against maybe the worst team in the NFL. Pull the Band-Aid off right there. You know that Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston aren't the future of your team. It's going to be a trial by fire in a lot of ways because you got to play Philadelphia twice. You got to play Washington again. You got to play, a Dallas team that I don't think they're going to be great, but I think, not going to be easy for an inferior team to play against. It's not going to be easy, but again, you drafted this guy in the first round. You traded back into the first round to get him. You may as well see, all right, what do we got here?
I don't know, man. I know you want to start him at New Orleans. That's probably your best chance of making him look good.
Right.
But then the Eagles on a short week. You got to play them twice. Denver's defense is going to be good.
They play. Wait, New Orleans is what, a Monday night game then?
No, that's Sunday.
Sunday, okay.
And then they have Philly on Thursday.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay.
They have Philly on Thursday.
Then maybe the game after the Thursday night game, that gives them a little bit longer to prepare. Who do they play after that?
At Denver.
Ah, well, maybe not then. All right, I see what you're saying there. Yeah.
Like there's no clear on-ramp to Jaxson Dart starting right away unless you want to go to the bye week in week 14. But by then, you're at 1-13, you have nothing else to lose, and you play Washington, Minnesota, Vegas, and Dallas.
I don't like playing this game in terms of like coaches and firings and whatnot because, it's people's jobs and whatnot. But do we think Brian Daboll makes it through the season? I don't think so.
I don't think he makes it to week 8 at Philly.
Oh,
I don't.
Who would they put as the interim head coach? Who is Kafka still on that staff?
It's Kafka.
Yeah,
it's definitely gonna be Kafka. He's the one who's always gone to the Senior Bowl, to the Shrine Bowl. He's gotten a lot of rave reviews from a lot of people within the industry.
He got head coaching interviews this past offseason. So
it's like year 4 of this, and they still don't know who's calling plays, Kafka or Daboll, which is always a great sign.
Yeah.
But I think we see Kafka as the interim. Probably, maybe they could make him the permanent head coach. It depends on how they finish, but I don't think this season's going to go very far for New York.
I wonder where Daboll goes after that. He can go be an OC somewhere. He's got a good offensive mind. Head coach is not suit him.
He probably takes the year off if he gets fired.
That's probably a decent shout. Maybe.
He'll probably come back sometime later as maybe a position coach or like a coordinator.
I can see him being like a quarterback coach or a pass game coordinator in hell, I don't know, Los Angeles, maybe something like that. We'll see. But yes, the rest of the division, Commanders, they lost a few pieces on defense that I wasn't too happy about them. Like not having Dante Fowler, who had a career year, that's not a small loss. Still have questions in the secondary. Marshawn Lattimore is kind of a wild card as well. They traded for him last year and he was injured, didn't play all that great, especially in the NFC Championship game. So they still have a few wild cards there, but Jayden Daniels rules. And, you look at the rest of the offense where Terry McLaurin, still one of the better receivers in football. I believe in everything that they are doing. And I believe in Dan Quinn as a head coach. So still going to have them be a playoff team and win 10 games. They're not going to have as much, late game luck where they're going to win more than 10. I feel like they'll come down a little bit, but still a good team that no one's going to want to, go toe to toe with Jayden Daniels.
I kind of think the Cowboys are going to be sneaky good.
I've seen a few people who hop on the Brian Schottenheimer train, and I just don't know if I'm willing to do that.
This is less Brian Schottenheimer and more the coordinators are good. Like Clayton Adams, getting Clayton Adams from Arizona, who was kind of their offensive line coach, kind of one of the architects of their run game. I'm a really big fan of. I think they can build that offense around being more physical up front. And then George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb, if George Pickens is head on straight, that's a really good compliment to CeeDee Lamb and what he does. And I think Matt Eberflus is a really good defensive coordinator. You're going to get a lot of injury regression. You're going to get DeRon Bland back. Trayvon Diggs should be healthy again. You'll get Marshawn Nealon back. I love the Ezraku pick. And then if you can get Savon Ravel up to speed, you have a really athletic, really fast defense. Their schedule kind of does them a few favors early. I mean, late you get Kansas City.
They're playing a third place schedule too. So like it's not as if they're
you get Kansas City, Detroit, and Minnesota all after the bye in week 10, and they really backloaded the schedule for Dallas. I mean, early you got to play your Philly game. You play Chicago and Green Bay early, and then Washington, Denver, and Arizona, which isn't all those games like
there's
Washington.
There's a good chunk of winnable games.
Yeah, they're all winnable games, but if they can get through that relatively well entering the back half of the season, I don't know, man. They're going to be hanging around that the in the hunt graphic. That's where the Cowboys are probably going to be in year one of this Schottenheimer thing, which is a good thing for a first year head coach.
Right. Yeah, like I feel like for Dallas every year we kind of do this thing where we just don't know. It's always a coin flip with them. So I'm not going to be surprised if we're talking about them as a wild card team. Because I'm a believer in Dak, and obviously CeeDee Lamb's awesome. The whole George Pickens thing is a big if, but I understand why they did it. You needed somebody else opposite of CeeDee who can stretch the field, and George Pickens, like that's his specialty is stretching the field. So I get why they did it. It's still a little bit of a big if. Like what happens when there's a game where CeeDee gets 18 targets and Pickens gets 6. There's going to be potential backlash there internally, and that's something that we're going to find out really quick if Brian Schottenheimer can handle it. So we'll see. And I think we're both kind of in consensus on the Eagles. They're going to be a good team, going to be probably at minimum in the NFC Championship game. That's a team that no one's going to line up to play, even if they've lost a few people on the defensive line. They just traded Bryce Huff today to San Francisco. Still have a lot of young talent there, obviously in the secondary as well with Quinion Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. Offensively stacked. Don't see them falling off very much, if at all.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you have Jeff Stoutland, Vic Fangio, Eagles offensive line, Jalen Carter, you're going to win a bunch of games.
Yeah. The next division is the one I'm least confident in. I predicted the Falcons to win the NFC South going 9-8. I like Penix a little bit more than I expected. And I think he throws a pretty ball. There's a few throws last year, like especially I went back and watched a little bit of the Washington game, just some film to see what he looked like against them. And that last drive, like the touchdown pass that he threw to take it into overtime, I was like, all right, they might have something here. Even against Carolina, like a high scoring matchup between him and Bryce Young. Both of those guys were making throws where you're like, all right, there's something here. So I think that Atlanta, a team that was in a lot of close games last year as well, that just kind of got away from them. If they can kind of even that out a little bit, can get to 9 wins. Tampa Bay, I have no other reason for putting Tampa Bay at 2 other than the fact that they're not going to win it every year. And I know that seems like a cop-out answer, but every year there's like at least one division where there's somewhat of an unexpected winner. Tampa Bay's won this thing for the last 4 years. I don't think it's going to be 5. They've hovered around 8-9 wins throughout this entire Baker Mayfield stretch. I don't think that Todd Bowles is necessarily the long-term answer for a head coach if you want to get to the Super Bowl. So I think that maybe there will be a slight fall off. Plus, they're going through another offensive coordinator. I understand that, it's an in-house hire, so it's not going to be too different. But, those changes aren't small. I think offensively, they're going to be super duper fun. I have questions defensively, especially up front. I don't think Tampa Bay is going to be bad. I could very well flip this by beginning of September. This is just one where I don't know.
I want to put the Falcons as the first place team here. I really do. But you have to account for the fact that they are the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah. So for now, I'm going to put the Buccaneers. But like you said, I'm actually really encouraged by what Michael Penix did last season. I wrote about it earlier this week, and I went in expecting to see a guy with a little bit more flaws. But really, for Penix, it's just about he's a pitcher whose only ball he can throw is the fastball right now. He is a one-pitch guy. If he can develop more touch, especially over the middle of the field, and being more confident over the middle of the field, I think part of that has to do with his footwork and some wonky mechanics. But if he can iron out the middle of the field, that should help unlock that offense even more. I think Bijan Robinson is potentially going to be an Offensive Player of the Year candidate again this season. I have a lot more faith in Todd Bowles in terms of as a coordinator of a defense than I do managing the game. He's also managed to pick some really good hires for his OC. So I have a little more faith in, I think, is Josh Grizzard is the OC.
I think they the pass game coordinator, I think will be the quarterback coach who became the OC. So let me actually look it up just so we can give him proper credit.
I have more faith in Josh Grizzard. I think the Bucs offensive line is actually damn good. And then you have Mike Evans, Chris Godwin coming back off of injury, Emeka Egbuka. Those guys are going to win you some games. I think that we're going to get another Bucs NFC South title.
And like I said, this is one where as soon as I finish it, I was like, I would bet this changes by September.
If it flips and we get a miracle Panther season, I wouldn't be surprised.
You know what, man? I remember at the end of last season seeing Bryce Young over the last 5 weeks playing really well in the game against Atlanta to close out the year. And I think I even tweeted, it's like, I might pick the Panthers to win the NFC South. Now, going game by game, you lose that confidence a little bit, but there's always one team at least that surprises us every year. It happens almost yearly in the NFL where a team goes worst to first. Granted, I think that they were third in the division technically last year because of tiebreakers with the Saints, but a team that could turn things around. Their defense scares me, though. There's a lot of holes there.
They need those rookies to play well immediately.
Yeah.
So that's the issue there. But, I mean, the Bryce Young thing, I'm excited for how much he grew to end the season. But even through that growth, he still finished he finished 11th in adjusted EPA per play. I'm not a big EPA per play when it comes to quarterbacks, but more success rate. His success rate was about 15th. It was right around Aaron Rodgers, Geno Smith, which is fine. I want to see if he can consistently overcome some of the stuff that he was asked to do or some of his limitations within that offense. I do think the receiving core outside of McMillan, and even he's a rookie, you have a lot of questions there. But like you said, the defense is coordinated well. I love Israel Evero and what he's done to the defense. You just don't have the bodies. And if those rookies play well right away, wouldn't surprise me if they win the NFC South.
That's one where I want to get really bold and just say that they will. So maybe in the second edition of this, that might be the team I just plant my flag in. Yeah, they certainly are. And then New Orleans, man, good luck. Credit to Mickey Loomis because he kind of got them out of the cap hell for and not just getting them barely over. They actually had some money to work with. But man, what is there? Obviously, the quarterback position is a big thing when it comes to them because it's Jake Haener, it's Spencer Rattler, it's Tyler Shuck. All right, man, good luck. And then defensively, a lot of their best players are just older. And I just don't see a lot of success taking place here.
Doug Nussmeier's son is currently a starting quarterback at LSU and will be draft eligible next year.
There you go.
That's the name you need to know. Of course, Arch Manning is going to be the guy everybody wants. And with the worst record in football, they might, but get ready for Garrett Nussmeier.
And then, when it comes to Tyler Shuck, we were both surprised that he was drafted in the top 50 pick. Tyler Shuck.
It was 40.
Yeah. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Like, how's that gonna go?
I think Tyler Shuck is good when kept clean, but the problem is he's got the real bad scar tissue from being hit all the time in college football, so he turtles under pressure. It's I'm not gonna say it's Kenny Pickett levels because that would be dooming him, but it's a really worrisome thing that he just turtles and completely caves in under pressure, which is going to be the thing that you have to coach out of him if you're Kellen Moore, because you want to get the most out of that offense. But even then, who is he going to be throwing it to if Chris Olave isn't healthy? Rashid Shaheed coming off a knee injury. If you're throwing to like Bub Means.
Jawan Johnson's still there, but I mean that's
you know what? Tyler Shuck and Jawan Johnson have a chemistry.
They were teammates in Oregon.
Together at Oregon. Which is crazy.
It is a hilariously stupid fact.
Throwing to Mason Tipton, like
Christ.
Good luck. We'll see. We'll see you next year.
You'd have better luck throwing to London Tipton. I don't love the she knows ball.
She does know ball.
Shout out to Brenda Song. And if you haven't seen the Rams schedule release video yet, I implore everybody to go watch it. It's incredible. Are we in agreement that the Saints will be the worst team in the NFL?
Yes.
Okay. Well, there you go. So are you penning in that Garrett Nussmeier will be the first overall pick?
I'm not penning in that Garrett Nussmeier will be the first overall pick, but I am saying that if he is the first overall pick, it's because Doug Nussmeier wants to keep his son close.
All right, let's move to the NFC West then. The Rams, I have winning the division. They were mere plays away from getting to the NFC Championship game last year and probably the Super Bowl. If they beat Philadelphia, I think they beat Washington. Adding Devontae Adams to that offense opposite of Puka Nacua. Really good run game with Kyron Williams. Good offensive line, especially on the interior. So I like everything about their offense right now. And I think Stafford, while the numbers aren't as crazy as they were when they won the Super Bowl back in 2021, he's become much more of a point guard in a sense, but like he's always been somewhat of that. I think he's been, I don't know, what's a good analogy here?
I think he's become a guy that can still get you a bucket as a quarterback, but I think it's less often now because he's just old.
Right. I'm trying to think of like a guy who just really aged gracefully in maybe another sport. I was going to say he's like, that would have been a horrible. I was going to say like Timberwolves Derrick Rose, but that's horrible. That's not a good example.
What about Chris Paul?
That's good. That's a better one. Yes. I would agree with that.
Chris Paul is a good one there. I actually had the 49ers winning the division.
I have the 49ers finishing second and still being a playoff team.
Yeah, I still think they make the playoffs, but I think they win the division partially. One, they get the fourth place schedule.
Yeah, it's
and
easy schedule.
Is so light. It is, but I'm not gonna say it's like an easy schedule because no game is easy in the NFL. But you think about what the 49ers are getting back when it comes to just injury.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Ayuk is going to be healthy for the first time in a few months. You're going to have Ricky Pearsall, who I think can be a breakout candidate this year. Dominic Puni had a really good season starting at right guard. Christian McCaffrey is going to be healthy. You're retooling the defense and bringing in a coordinator that actually knows how to run a good defense in Robert Saleh. And I think the defensive additions that they've made, especially Alfred Collins on the interior, I think that's really going to help them shore up their run game. Losing Malik Mustafa to a ACL injury really freaking sucks. But I still think Kyle Shanahan's a really good coach and a really good offensive play caller. And Brock Purdy has shown when everything is right around him, he can take that offense to some unprecedented heights. So I think I have a lot of faith in them just completely running over that schedule. And the Rams don't really have the benefit of having the last place schedule. And I also just I wonder how long Stafford's going to be able to be kept upright. And I think they've done some work to the offensive line. And I still do believe that they can be a very good offensive line. But, I still think they need more speed in the offense. So it's going to be a dogfight.
Yeah, and the secondary with the Rams too is a question mark. Maybe they bring back Jalen Ramsey in a trade. They wouldn't have to give up a lot to do it, but he is expensive. So I mean, those are things that you got to worry about if you're the Rams. And yeah, with the 49ers, like I said, either way, they're going to be a playoff team. I believe I wouldn't have paid Brock Purdy that much money. But there are some X factors offensively. Ricky Pearsall being one of them, where you really need him to hit. Took him in the first round for a reason. A lot of people thought you overdrafted him. Now, obviously, he dealt with the gunshot wound last year in the offseason, which put a lot of delayed his debut and put a lot of it took a lot of wind out of his sails in terms of being able to get off to a quick start. So I think regardless, the Rams and 49ers will both be playoff teams. I picked the Rams to come out of the NFC very early on. We'll see how that holds going into September. But right now, I'm going to stick with that pick. The Cardinals, they won 8 games last year, and they got better. Looking at the schedule, I couldn't come away with more than 8 wins. And they seem to be one of those teams that always starts off hot and falls apart at the end. If they can start off hot and sustain that, especially defensively, because I love what they did defensively this offseason. I think my biggest thing comes down to, okay, is Kyler Murray the guy? Connor Orr in his 100 predictions for the season said that Kyler Murray will not be an Arizona Cardinal next year. That's pretty bold. And I think that if they have something happen like this, where they go 8-9 again, that there's something to be said about that. And maybe they look elsewhere to, find a new quarterback.
So I don't know if this is a hot take at all.
Okay.
But I do think I'm going to pick the Cardinals to make the playoffs.
Okay. That's fun.
I bought the dip last season and it bit me in the ass. I'm going to do it again here.
I wouldn't even say it bit you in the ass, because they were still like a competitive team that was close.
Yeah. And I think they got even better up front defensively, which is the biggest thing. They were just small. Yeah. I love the coordinators. I love Nick Rawless, who I think could potentially get a head coaching job sooner rather than later. Shout out to the brother of Mad Cat Moss. Drew Petzing, I think, is also a very good coordinator. But like you said, it all comes down to Kyler Murray. And can Kyler be the quarterback for this offense that they need? The biggest issue is the rapport with Marvin Harrison Jr. just wasn't there.
Yeah.
They were off on so many different things. It looked like when two artists like come together for like a song, and they're playing 2 different tunes. So it just looks weird. Like, it works in theory, but they're just not on the same page. I think that was what happened with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray. I think that rapport is going to improve this upcoming season. But like you said, if they don't make the playoffs, I do think that signals the end of Kyler Murray's tenure in Arizona.
Yeah, especially because, like, let's say they do win 8 games, they'll have a top 16-ish draft pick, 14-ish draft pick. They'll be in position to move up for a guy if they wanted him. I'd be interested to see what does come of that in terms of, all right, what teams need a quarterback, which one of them will want Kyler Murray, what would that look like? That's something to definitely keep an eye on going forward. Seattle, they're probably going to win more than 5 games. That felt low when I predicted it. That said, not too crazy about the moves they've made. Free agency wise, draft wise, I thought John Schneider and company did a fantastic job. So I'm kind of backtracking a little bit from that, but I'm not going to buy into the Sam Darnold stuff. I understand I didn't last year. And my argument for that is I think that mediocre to bad quarterbacks can have good seasons. I don't think that Sam Darnold is all of a sudden a great quarterback. I think he had a great year, and I wish nothing but success for him. But they're bringing in Cooper Kupp was weird when you already have Jackson Smith and Jigba as your slot guy. There's not really anybody else, in my opinion, that horrifies you on offense. You traded away DK Metcalf. So like, I just don't know what the plan seems to be here. Defensively, they got a lot better, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like. Because they already had a good defense, but offensively, I have questions.
So I think one of my takes about the Cardinals and the Seahawks is that they could both finish with really, really good defenses this season. The Seahawks especially could be one of the best defenses in the league.
Yeah.
But again, it's tough for Seattle because I like Clint Kubiak and I like what he does offensively.
I mean, dude, first 2 weeks of the year last year, we were saying that Clint Kubiak's going to be the next big thing at head coach when the Saints are scoring 1 billion points in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, he got sustainable levels of play out of Derek Carr. But again, the problem was The offensive line fell apart,
Mm.
and thus the offense fell apart. Obviously, offensive line, the most important position group in football. You need a good one if you want to win football games. Is that going to happen in Seattle? Is the offensive line going to fall apart? We are one Charles Cross injury away from Josh Jones starting at left tackle. We are, and I mean, not a lot of teams have depth at those spots, but what I'm saying is Clint Kubiak has not shown the ability to overcome offensive line injury. And Sam Darnold is definitely not the quarterback you want if you want to try and overcome offensive line injuries. I think the receiver room can be fun. There's a lot of unproven behind Cooper Kupp, Jackson Smith and Jigba, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who had a great year.
I forgot they brought in MVS. Yeah.
But I just need to see Sam Darnold with a much worse offensive line than he had last season in Minnesota to really kind of buy the dip on this team. But like I said, defense is going to rule. That defense is going to be awesome.
Yeah, I fully expect the defense to be very good. And like I said, 5 wins, probably too low. Should be a little bit higher. I feel the same way about the Seahawks, similarly to how I feel about like the Colts, because I also said 5 wins for them. They're probably going to win more games than that. I don't think either of them are going to be playoff teams. But with Indy, it's just, all right, the quarterback, don't like it. Everything else, like if you put like, Verderam brought up this, and I thought it was a really good point. Are they the team that trades for Kirk Cousins? Because if you do that, that's a team that I could kind of rock with as a 8-9 win team that could sneak in as a 7 seed.
I couldn't see it with Kirk Cousins.
You don't think so?
Kirk Cousins cannot move. Like he is a statue in the pocket, and he is still coming off that Achilles injury. It just depends on what he can be as a quarterback at this point, and the arm strength that he didn't already have. I also think the Colts receivers aren't as good as we think.
Do one of them get moved? I feel like all of this receiver talk about potential trades and whatnot, you look at with Pittman and Downs and Pierce and A.D. Mitchell. Like they got a bunch of guys, like it might be time to send one away.
I think if anybody gets moved, it's Pierce, but Pierce was the only one who could catch all the vertical targets.
Yeah.
So then you're hoping A.D. Mitchell does that, but A.D. Mitchell can't focus. Like the reason he did not play was because he was running the wrong routes and gave terrible effort as a blocker. Those are 2 quick reasons to not go and not get in the game. So you're relying on Michael Pittman Jr., who was more of an in-between guy, Josh Downs, who was a slot guy, and they had the worst tight end room in the league. So you're hoping that the receiver room gets to step up with another year of growth from A.D. Mitchell, adding Tyler Warren, who from camp reports looks like everything is advertised.
Maybe he'll play quarterback.
I mean, maybe, but he's still not going to have anybody to throw the ball to. I have a lot more questions about the Colts skill position talent, not because of how good they are, but can they all be functioning together at the same time?
That's a team too, and I know there's NFC showing up, but since we're talking about the Colts, if they are, say, 2-5 or whatever at the deadline, maybe a team calls for Michael Pittman and they're like, all right, yeah, whatever. We'll get, if you give us, a couple picks for Michael Pittman, then we'll just embrace this whole rebuild and give you that and move on.
So the only reason I wouldn't say they'd move Pittman, I think his contract,
do they pay him?
They gave him a $70 million contract in last season.
Okay.
They gave him an extension. So, but there's a potential out in 2026, according to Spot Track, but I don't think they move off of him. I think it's Pierce, or if they really want to tear all this down, it'll probably end up being one of the defensive guys.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. They paid Zaire Franklin. I don't know if they would want to move him, but I mean, we'll see. There's a lot of things that could happen with the Colts this year that is certainly interesting. So, but back to the NFC in terms of my 1 through 7, Green Bay getting the 1 seed in the bye. Philadelphia, Rams, Falcons, those are your division winners. And then 5, 6, 7 goes Detroit and Washington, and then San Francisco. Wouldn't be surprised if San Francisco has 5 or 6. It's just how the predictions worked out. And that's where we're currently at. We'll do this again in, like I said, right before the season kicks off, which is 100 days away from the first Sunday in the NFL. And like we were talking about in the lobby, 60 days until the Hall of Fame game. So we're getting close. If you had to pick it right now, what's your playoff picture look like?
Oh man, it's tough. Now that we went through all the teams, I'm like, man, there are a lot more good teams in the NFC than I
Yeah,
thought.
the NFC, I feel like the AFC is more top heavy. The NFC is deeper.
Yeah, the NFC is deeper. There are much more good teams in
Yeah.
the NFC, but you could say like the top 3 of the top 5 Super Bowl contenders are from the AFC. I'm gonna go Philly with the 1 seed.
Okay.
I just going with chalk there. I think the Lions get the 2 again. I think I'm gonna go Niners with the 3. I'll go Tampa at 4.
Okay.
5 will be the Rams. Then the Packers 6. Commanders 7.
But you also got Arizona.
Arizona's lurking. I think Minnesota could still make a run. Again, there's just more depth in the NFC. Like we could sit here and talk all we want about all these teams that we just made the playoff picture for.
Yeah.
I could see, like we said, what if the Panthers crashed the party?
You could talk me into like 11 teams in the NFC being playoff teams. You can't do that with me in the AFC. There's like 8 teams in the AFC that you could really like legitimately say, yeah, I think they could be a playoff team.
Yeah, I think it just speaks to the depth in the NFL as a whole, but especially in this conference of coaching and talent, where it's like, you know what? I could see this team making a run. And in the NFC South's case, it's the NFC South. Nothing normal ever happens there.
Yeah, very factual. And like I said, that's why it's the hardest one to pick for me, because Penix could go off and things would really come together on both sides of the ball. But they could also just, be the Atlanta Falcons, and the Buccaneers could just explode offensively and win 9 games off that alone. So it's a lot that could happen between now and then, and we'll do one more of these before the season starts, right before the season starts. And again, it's coming up quickly. We're in the midst of OTA time, 2 months away from the Hall of Fame game. I'm sure that you're going to be looking at, I don't know, who the hell's the Chargers backup quarterback now? Is it Taylor Heineke? We'll do Taylor Heineke props for the Hall of Fame game.
Well, DJU is on that QB.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
He is going to play in the Hall of Fame game.
I was going to say, is he just going to be the entire 4th quarter of the Hall of Fame game?
The Chargers depth chart at quarterback is Justin Herbert, Taylor Heineke, Trey Lance, and DJU.
I forgot they had Trey Lance too. Oh my God. That's incredible.
This team is going to be hilarious.
They're playing the Lions, who's their backup quarterback right now?
Hendon Hooker.
Hendon Hooker, yes, of course. Who's their 3rd? Let's pull up the Lions depth chart real quick and make fun of that. I don't think that they drafted a guy or anything like that. I could be wrong though.
I don't think they did. Kyle Allen.
Sick.
We are in for some real sicko ball.
We are going to be watching a game that will feature DJ Yolungalale against Kyle Allen, 4th quarter hours. And it's on NBC, so I think it'll be Tirico and Collinsworth on the call for it.
Oh God.
Man, they are going to be tired.
Tirico is going to want to get out of there by halftime.
Oh, I don't blame him. Absolutely. It's Hall of Fame game is always like exciting because all right, we got football back and whatnot. There's going to be so much overanalyzation when it comes to like, all right, let's see who's going to, is DJ Yolungalale, maybe somebody will try to trade for him because he had a 27-yard completion down the right sideline. That'll be a lot of fun. I can't wait for the overanalyzation of that.
The Cowboys just did it with Joe Milton. Anything can happen, baby.
Yeah.
Anything can happen.
I mean, if you remember, was it 2018? Teddy Bridgewater had like the preseason of his life and got traded from the Jets to the Saints. So we'll see. Preseason, it's coming. It's coming. 2 months away. Can't wait. Buddy, I always enjoy doing this with you. What have you got coming for everybody to read, or what's already out for people to read?
So, like I said, I did a big piece on Michael Penix Jr. and what we can learn from his first 4 starts and where he can improve for a Falcons team that needs him to be good this season. And then upcoming, got a bunch more deep dives into just the NFL in general, but also some more team-specific stuff. So you on the lookout for that. Follow me, see what I'm doing, see where I'm going.
For me, I wrote a thing about Aaron Rodgers and the Steelers, and that I'm tired of seeing the notion that like the Steelers are above Aaron Rodgers. They're not. They haven't won anything in a decade, so I'm a little bit tired of that. I could just kind of wrote my thoughts there about all that. And then in the next, it should be about like 2 weeks. I put together a panel to rank the top 30 quarterbacks of the Super Bowl era. Star-studded cast. I'm very excited for that to come out. It's likes of me, Greg Rosenthal, Dan Hansis, Mark Sessler, a lot of just really heavy hitters when it comes to football media as part of it. And I'm very excited for it to come out. And that'll be coming in the next couple weeks. JP, buddy, I always enjoy doing stuff like this with you. We'll be doing it a lot more throughout the summer, into the regular season. It'll be a lot of fun. Appreciate you as always, buddy.
Of course.
All right, everybody, take care. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you're listening as a podcast, leave a review. We'll talk soon. It's the Pump